Okay, so good morning everyone. Thank you for hanging around and being prepared to sit and listen to me. My name's Phil, I'm with Forseti Training. I've been running the company for just under 4 years now. 4 years ago, if you'd asked me, I would not have known half of what I know now. I fell into the first aid side and realised the critical importance of it, and I've made it my mission ever since to improve my knowledge day by day in everything we're doing. Throughout my time as a first aid instructor, one of the biggest gripes I have is the amount of false information out there and the amount of perpetuation of this that goes on. So today's talk, we're going to talk about some of those myths I continually hear in terms of defibrillators, bleed kits and tourniquets. These are all life-saving equipment, and I'm happy to turn around and say that after the latest guidance has been issued 2 weeks ago, they're all now going to be very commonplace and they're expected to be used across the country. So starting with defibs. We all know what defib is. You probably go to most workplaces, you've got them. First myth, you do not need to be trained to use that defib. The amount of people I have on courses, and I'll throw them in the deep end and I'll be like, fit the defib, and they're like, what? Yeah, just fit it, okay? And they go, but I don't know what I'm doing. And you're going, so listen to it and look at the pictures. Defibs are designed to be handled by anyone in an emergency situation. They increases our chance of success with CPR from around about 30% up to about 60%. Okay, sometimes a bit more. The fact that we're in a position now where last year in the UK there was over 100,000 out of hospital cardiac arrests. Defibs were available in nearly 40% of those. But yet the overall use of defibs is under 4%. 4% of out of hospital cardiac arrests receive a defibrillator shock in time. And the most common reason when we ask people why they don't use them is, I don't know how to, have not been trained. That one myth alone is costing us potentially 30,000 plus lives a year. Okay? I understand why people do defib awareness courses. They're a great initiative. They want to get the word out there. They want people to feel comfortable with this technology. But it's having a negative effect at the moment, and people are believing that they need to be trained to use it because there is a course on doing it. Okay? Some of the other myths on there. A defib can shock anyone. A defib is looking for one of two things. It's either looking for when the heart is in what we call a flutter. Okay, don't worry, I won't bore you with the technical terminology. Okay, but for all intents and purposes, rather than the heart beating as normal, the heart is fluttering. Most common in a cardiac arrest, about 88 to 85% of people have this, and it's just what we call a shockable rhythm. Okay. The second one is when the heart is beating so fast that it literally, okay, it cannot suck in and push out any blood. It is beating so fast. Okay, and that's the second most common, but it literally is about 10% of people. Okay. Apart from that, you could walk around all day with a defib on you and it would do nothing. All a defib is an external pacemaker. What a pacemaker does is internal defibrillation. Okay. I have connected defibs to people that are in a heart attack position, okay, and it has literally been going off for 10 to 15 minutes, literally just going, no shock advised, no shock advised. Like I knew it would. But because I'd put it into position when the gentleman fell into a cardiac arrest, he received a shock within 60 seconds, and with his underlying health conditions, if it had not been that quick, he would have died. Okay? They're lifesavers. Another common thing I hear is, if you get a defib on in time, you're going to save the life. I'm sorry, guys. With the best will in the world, if you do everything right, it is still a game of chance. Okay? We don't like to think about this, and I'd rather focus on the 60% of people that it could save, okay, than the potential 40% that it might not. Okay? In the words of the Hunger Games, the odds are forever in our favour. It is a positivity for us. Okay? But we do need to understand perfection doesn't mean success. Okay? Seen a lot of pictures starting to surface recently of defibs burning people. Let me be clear. The only way a defib will burn you is if there is something wrong with the pads. What can be wrong with the pads? They are either out of date which means the adhesive is no longer holding the pad to the skin, or the pad's been pre-used. Now, unfortunately, we do have people that they don't carry stock of replacement pads. And you can turn around and say, I've had a defib in my workplace for 7 years, I've never used it. Today you'll use it, and then tomorrow you'll need it again. You'll order the pads after you've used it, but you won't have a set of pads ready to go. So you'll use the ones that are already there. And unfortunately, that is where we can get burns, because where the pad is not flush with the skin, the electricity will jump through the pad into the skin, so causing the burn. But as long as you fit it properly and you've got in-date equipment, it won't be an issue. Okay. Now, on terms of pads, just a very quick update for you. We have had a change in placement. So from around about January, we'll have new books come out and everything else. They're writing the new publications as we speak. But what they want us to do now is, normally we have a pad on the upper right clavicle and the other pad comes on the lower left side. What we want to do now is we want to raise that pad more into the armpit. The reason being is a lot of people, when they're putting it down here, are putting it too far to the front. So what's happening is the shock is skimming over the top of the heart. What we want by putting the pad around here is it will actually go through the heart, more of the shock on more of the heart. Okay? It's always good to pay attention to the changes that are going on in place. Now, defibrillators are nothing new. They've been out for quite a while. And another technology has been out for quite a while, and it's very underrated, okay, is that of hemostats. Now, for those of you who don't know what a hemostat is designed to provide an environment where the blood's own body can clot. Okay? Early day hemostats, we had some issues with them. Okay? But the most modern hemostats on the market, okay, all the leading competitors on the market in the UK do not suffer from any of these, but we're still suffering with the myths of what's going on. Now, the new guidelines that are issued, the European Resuscitation Council have now admitted that the ideal situation when you are dealing with a critical bleed, they want your first portable core to be a pressure dressing with a hemostatic agent. So whereas before it was like pressure, wound packing, now what we're saying is pressure dressing. Okay, so it's a different type of dressing, not the ones you find in the standard first aid kit. Okay, these are designed to deal with large volumes of fluids, and the use of hemostatic agents. Hemostatic agents react within 2 to 3 minutes and will assist the body in preventing the blood leaving the body. There's a few different types. Okay, the two main ones that we see in the UK are on the screen here. Okay, if you've got a military background, you're probably used to Celox. Okay. Celox is based on the chitosan products, which is crushed up crustacean shells. Myth, okay? People are allergic to hemostats. We have had no actual reported allergic reaction to any hemostat. Okay? I'm not saying it's not possible, okay? But there's been none actually registered. With the chitosan stuff, they actually remove the protein that everyone is allergic to, which is why you turn around and say, I've got a seafood allergy, and you're going, yeah, but this is fine, even though it's prawn shells, because they've already removed that protein that everyone's allergic to. Now, original hemostats, okay, when they first started using them, they used to cause a thermogenic reaction. We used to get a lot of heat build up in the wound. Okay, made it very uncomfortable. I say uncomfortable, I mean, at the end of the day, we were pushing something inside, it's going to be uncomfortable anyway, but the added heat, okay, didn't really help things there. All of the products on the market now do not have a thermogenic reaction. Okay? Up until recently, it was true. You had to insert hemostats into the wound. And I spoke to people this morning already, okay, and they turn around and saying about this, and they go, you turn around to a first aider and you turn around and say, okay, I want you to start poking inside of someone, okay? They're not very comfortable with that. They're not medical professionals, they're not designed to be, okay? With the latest hemostats, the cellulose-based hemostats, such as wound clot, we now have the ability where literally you can take it out of the packet and slap it onto a wound. Within 2 to 3 minutes, it's formed a gel structure over the wound, will hold an arterial bleed for over 30 minutes. More than enough time, even in central London, for an ambulance to get there. Okay? So the myth, you have to insert all hemostats. No. Okay? In actual fact, some hemostats, the chitosan-based ones, you can't put onto head wounds. Okay, you can't put onto the neck wounds. Whereas wound clot is safe to be used on all of these. Okay, All cellulose-based dressings can. Right. We have reports, and these come from the old style hemostats, the non-biodegradable ones. Okay? There's a lot of people that turn around and said that they were having strokes caused by clots, okay, when the hemostat gets into the bloodstream and it moves around the body and ends up in the brain. A lot of those reports come from older hemostats, okay? Primarily those that use non-biodegradable ingredients, okay, such as kaolin, which is powdered Chinese clay. Thankfully, none of the products on sale in the UK, okay, that are from UK distributors contain kaolin. The only one that I know of has to be imported from America. Okay? Doesn't mean it's not out there, it just means that thankfully we don't actually sell it in the UK unless you deliberately import it. Okay? Again, just like defibrillators, not every hemostat is going to stop every bleed. Sometimes wounds are so bad that we can't stop them. Okay? Unfortunately, in my town of Portsmouth, a couple of years back, there was an incident with a young lad that rode past someone on a scooter with a knife and slashed across his abdomen. There was a responder on scene within seconds because of the nature of where it was, and fought like hell for 15 minutes to try and stem that bleeding, and unfortunately was not able to. Responders have a lot more technology than the average stuff that we're putting in bleed kits. So, with the best will in the world, again, understand that with first aid there is no guarantees. We are creating an environment for the best possible chance. Okay? They're complex to use. We've only really got two methods of application. You can either poke it inside, okay, or with the modern ones, such as the wound clot ones, okay, you can take out the pack and slap it on. It's not really complex. With wound packing, okay, if I turn around and said to you, okay, you've got a hole here, pack it, you can understand, okay, how to get a bit of cloth and start packing the hole. The idea of wound packing is that if we pack the hole full of the agent, not only are we going to stop the bleed, but we're going to get the pressure onto the source of the bleed, which is going to be the artery or the vein, which is buried down deep. Okay? But by wound packing, even with a hemostat, we're able to get that pressure down. Okay? And when we use a hemostat to wound pack, we've got the pressure on the wound. We've got the clotting effect of the hemostat being in place. We've got the reduced blood loss. And then we've got the pressure dressing on top that's going to maintain that pressure indefinitely. All of a sudden, I'd say that's a pretty good chance of success on that environment. Okay. The last thing I want to talk to you about, okay, is something that we used to use in first aid, and then we stopped using it. Okay, and we stopped using it because of the policies that we had in place with it. Tourniquets have been used in some shape or form, okay, for hundreds of years. You go back to Roman days, okay, they understood back then, okay, if someone's cut, okay, we can tighten it up, we can stop the blood coming out. Nice and easy. We stopped using tourniquets because previously what we used to turn around and say to people is you put a tourniquet on, 10 minutes later you must release it to see whether you stopped the bleeding, and because we were worried about the toxins that are building up in that part of the limb. Okay? Unfortunately, what was happening is when you release an artery, okay, or a vein, and you then try and shut it back down again, it becomes a lot harder. Okay? We weren't able to re-shut down the artery or vein, and all we've basically done was delayed the death by about 10 minutes. Okay? And in a lot of cases, even back then, when the ambulance service wasn't under so much strain, they weren't able to get there in time. Modern tourniquets, okay, are now fitted and left in place. Okay? We've done a recent study, they've done a recent study in 2015, and they looked at soldiers that had served in Afghanistan and Iraq. And they looked at those that had suffered what we call a compressible catastrophic hemorrhage. Now, compressible means we can use extreme pressure, okay? Arms and legs. Okay? Obviously, unfortunately, we can't use extreme pressure on head and neck wounds, okay? Otherwise, tourniquets would fit quite nicely, but if I need to explain that, okay, then wrong crowd. But they looked at these soldiers and they said, okay, if they've suffered a critical hemorrhage, okay, and a compressible wound, if they had a tourniquet fitted, they had a 92% survival rate. Okay, soldiers are taught, critical bleed, compressible, tourniquet. The first port of call is they're putting a tourniquet on. Okay, it is a life-saving device. The same study also showed that other soldiers that had a compressible catastrophic hemorrhage that didn't have a tourniquet fitted had a 0% survival. Okay? They are life-saving. So I'm glad to say that since that study came out, okay, our policy on tourniquets has changed. However, there is a lot of myths around them, about them. The biggest change with tourniquets now is when we fit them, we leave them in place. Okay? Someone arrives, you tell them, I fit a tourniquet on the left arm. Okay? If it's a paramedic, he's like, great, I'm not touching it. Okay? He takes the patient off to hospital. Okay, he walks into A&E, goes to the nurse, nurse, tourniquet on the left arm. She goes, great, I'm not touching it. She trottles off, gets a doctor, goes, doctor, doctor. Don't worry, there's no joke. Okay. Doctor, doctor, got a tourniquet in base 6. Okay, I'll come and have a look. Okay, and only once the doctor is actually happy that he can control the bleed, okay, over a period of time will he release that tourniquet. Right. The procedures are set in place. Okay. Some of the myths. If you fit a tourniquet, you're going to lose the limb. So again, refer back to that original study. 92% survived. Okay. So they looked at those 92% and they said, okay, who lost a limb? Were any of that limb loss attributed to the use of a tourniquet? Okay. Not a single limb loss was attributed to the use of the tourniquet. In other words, the wounds were so bad that they were going to lose the limb regardless. What they did keep was their life. Okay. Covered off already, tourniquets should be periodically loosened. We don't do that. Okay, that's down to the hospital with the doctors, and they'll do it when they are ready and they know they can control it. Have you ever noticed that when you see like these documentaries about road traffic accidents, the firefighters will never cut someone out of a wreck until the paramedics have told them that they are ready? It's because the paramedics are getting ready to deal with the effects of this. They're making sure that they're doing everything they can to create an environment where that patient has the best chance possible. Our best chance possible is putting it on and leaving it alone. Okay? A makeshift tourniquet, look, a belt is as good as a commercial one. Now, I know not all belts are real leather, but we'll assume that they are, okay? Because the fake stuff works the same, okay? With leather, okay, when you pull it, it stretches. When you have a buckle, okay, you have a big open space. With a tourniquet, we do not have any open spaces. We are circling around and we are cutting it off. Okay? If you've got nothing else, a makeshift tourniquet is better than no tourniquet. But it's still not as good as a designated tourniquet. Right? You can make a better tourniquet out of your first aid kit with a triangular bandage and a pair of shears than you can with a belt. All right? However, a proper tourniquet will always trump everything, because we can do it up so tight, okay, that it is going to exclude the blood. Right? Now, when you're fitting this, okay, they don't tickle. Right? They are not going to be looking at you like loving in the eyes and going, thank you so much, you're saving me, I can't believe it. No. They are going to be kicking, screaming, and trying to get you off. It hurts. The good news is, once it is fitted, the pain goes away. And the reason being, as well as excluding the blood, we're also blocking the nerve signal. Okay? Interesting one here, okay, one of the most popular myths, okay, is tourniquets don't work on limbs with 2 bones. So in the lower bone, okay, in the lower leg, okay, you have a couple of bones. They do. If you fit them properly, following the guidelines, they do. All right, I don't know where this myth came from. Okay, probably someone's went, oh, well, yeah, but the bones stop you from being able to like squash the bones, and you can't really push the bones together. Okay. Do a tourniquet up tight enough, you will. All right, but the veins and the arteries are not in that space in between the bones. They're on the outside, and we can squash those onto those bones. Okay. With all these things, hemostats, tourniquets, okay, and with defibs, the only reason these work is because we need to get them out there and we need to get people comfortable with them. That means standardized training by people that understand these. All the time we've got people out there turning around saying some of these myths, we are going to run the risk that people will not use them when needed. Okay? Does your standard first aid kit have these in? No. But we are seeing increasement in the availability of what we call public access kits, okay? Trauma bleed kits, and even with every walk of life, okay, whether it be hikers, okay, whether it be the lone worker in response vehicles, okay, whether it be your large retail units, okay, they're all starting to take on board the fact that they need to cover this off. When we deal with large-scale events, trauma is the biggest killer of under 40s in the UK, and most of those deaths come from critical bleeds. I done an interview with the BBC just before last Christmas, and they were talking about Magdeburg, what happened there. Yes, it was caused because someone moved a concrete barrier, okay, and forgot to move it back. But when they're talking to me, they're going, oh, should this matter, should this matter? And I'm like, look, the biggest thing we can do to affect the outcome of the survivability here is to understand that we need to put the equipment and the training in place for people to deal with bleeds. And they're like, but we're talking about a vehicle here. And I'm like, yes, it's the most single life-threatening injury that these people suffer is a loss of blood. 10 minutes after my interview, the reports started coming back in from live on scene, and all of them started off with, we cannot believe the amount of blood that's on the ground here. Okay? In the UK, we're embracing this, we're changing this culture, and we're slowly getting there. The SAA are doing their part by mandating security staff will be trained on this. But we do need people to start ignoring the myths, looking into this stuff, and start placing the equipment out there. If it doesn't get out there, it can't be used. We don't know where the next attack's going to be. Okay, 2 weeks ago, we had one on a train. Someone got on a train. Luckily, a train guard put his own life in the way to stop them. We've had a kids' dance school. Okay. We've had incidents on the tube stations. We've had incidents on buses. You walk down the street, okay, and you can't hear like groups of youths, okay, and they're all talking about knife fights. These things are happening around us all the time. We need to adapt, and we need to change our philosophy in terms of first aid. Okay. It says on here the ability to effectively treat critical bleeds, okay, can be simple and effective if we allow it to be. None of the equipment I've talked about today, tourniquets, they're not hard to understand how to use. 2 inches above the wound, okay? If you don't do it up tight enough to shaft up blood flow, blood will continue to leave and they will die. Okay? If that 2 inches above the wound takes you onto a joint, go 2 inches above that. Okay? Nice and simple. It's only on compressible wounds and only on critical bleeds. When you have a non-compressible wound, hemostatic dressing, either push it into the wound or put it on top, whichever one you've got. Put pressure dressing over the top and do it up as tight as you can. It will slow and stem the flow of blood and hopefully give the body a chance to form its own clot. Okay? They are now being part of compulsory training under the SAA. And it's my belief, okay, that come the 1st of January, 2nd of January, when we're starting to see all the updated material coming out from RQF courses and awarding bodies, critical bleed training will be mandated across the board in all first aid courses. Okay? And that means the ability to use hemostats and tourniquets. Okay? Thank you for listening to me today. Thank you very much. Enjoy your lunch. And if anyone wants to see some equipment, I've got some on my table. Okay?